Paul Lightfoot, welcome to the Australian Ballet. I am so thrilled to say that because you are a dear friend, but someone that I know is enriching the repertoire here within the company. It's such an honor to have you in Australia and setting Kunstkamer, which is, how do we describe it?
A monster. A beautiful monster is what we usually call it.
That's what you told me. It's a monster. It is a gorgeous monster.
Thank you.
I mean, it's
but likewise, I'm really, it's thrilling to be here, to work with this company. Finally, after so many years, it's always been a wish of mine. You know, I come from Nederlands Dans Theater, was my career span, and somehow our two companies have been very indirectly related.
Yeah, that's what
it's like, you know, the linkage has always been there. So it's been a dream, and when we reconnected, and you told me that there was, you know, this
possibility.
job, yeah, that it would be maybe falling into your hands, then I immediately thought about this work, which is an odd thing to do because it really is a very huge challenge, not only for your dancers, but also for us.
Yeah, we didn't start small, did we?
No, we hit the ground running, as they say. Yeah.
But let's go back to Moscow.
Yeah.
And
it was cold.
It was cold. We were on the balcony overlooking Bolshoi Theater.
Yeah.
And I said, there's this possibility that I'll become, you know, the next director of the company.
Yeah.
And what should we do? So Kunstkamer came out of your mouth.
You thought it was a swear word?
I thought it was a swear word.
No.
And then we haven't looked back.
No.
And so I guess, what are the challenges for these artists to take on something like Kunstkamer?
You know, when you take it apart, when you remove all of the emotions that are inside it, when you look at it purely, we often discuss about language. And, you know, it's like we're going to ask your company to suddenly start learning to speak Russian, Japanese, you know, French, and a bit of Dutch. You know, and I think that they are very capable linguists, but still you're dealing with the fact that these are not just choreographers. They are creators who are right here and now putting their stamp in the contemporary ballet world. I hate all those boxes, but you know, we're living choreographers. Those choreographers are obviously solely on myself. We normally work together, but on this production we split our forces. We try to divide and conquer. And Crystal Pite and Marco Goecke. Now, Crystal and Marco I had engaged as associate choreographers to Nederlands Dans Theater, which means that they would create a new work once a year. And therefore, the dancers that I was working, my dancers, the company I was working for, they were getting very familiar with their languages.
Yeah, okay.
So when I look to the company, I think the first thing that I think will be the biggest artistic hurdle is to, you know, educate them.
Yeah.
Is that not a too cruel a word? But I think that you know, you're dealing with your company, and I can say this now with 100% assuredness, you have a fantastically technical company, artistic company. You have a vibrant group of dancers, but not exposed to this language. So that was the biggest thing. I was like, okay, it would be lovely for Sol and I to work with a group, but imagine it's like opening this compendium of lives in there, and thoughts, and we're all connected, but we're all different, and that's, I think, going to be a real adventure. So I think that was the biggest thing that I was thinking about with Kunstkamer on practical terms.
Yeah.
So.
And so, with the creation of Kunstkamer, what I was so impressed with was how the work flows. You know, when you involve 4 different creators, a lot of the times it's very like part A is part B is, but it's like this whirlpool of creation.
Yeah.
Tell me how that sort of came together, how that was birthed?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of began from me, because from our perspective, our company was celebrating 60 years of existence. So I wanted to create something that was celebratory. I promised I'd hold this, and steer the ship, and which, I did.
Well,
to best of my capabilities. But when we all agreed, what we didn't want was exactly what you said. We didn't want a kind of like, oh, we're going to all create a ballet, sort of copy paste them together, and that just didn't feel right. We wanted a world that would flow between each other. Impossible almost because of practicalities of things, schedules and etc. etc. It took a long time to make it. We couldn't think that we would literally be like, I don't know, Crystal Pite and I in the room together making a section. We knew that each world needed its entire moment, But we wanted it to be scattered more. I felt a lot about in museums when you go and see, I don't know, four wonderful artists in their paintings, and that's what I kind of wanted, that these paintings would ultimately not have a narrative. I mean, that's never going to happen, but it was going to have a kind of like, you were going to see the connections and the differences between these artists. And I think we were going to speak very much about who we were right now. It was another part of the beauty of the work was that, this work is that it's so fresh. Very often when we're working with companies and bringing a work that we've already made, we've had time for for the dust to settle on it. We've had time for it to perhaps go through a generation or two of dancers and relearn it ourselves. And actually, you get to a premiere and you actually don't know what you're looking at usually. It's like this, you've just been through so much. You've been dragged backwards, and then you're looking at it. But this is not the case with Kunstkamer.
Yeah, I think that's what's so intriguing for us is that this work has only been danced by NDT, but also it's so fresh. So it's coming, directly out of your mouth. It's coming out of Soul's mouth. It's giving the dancers, although they don't have the exposure to you, the choreographers, yet.
No, that's coming.
It's giving the dancers their the freshest vocabulary that you have. So take us to the studio you've had 1 week. To work with the company as a whole. And how has it been? What has the energy been for you? What has it been for the dancers? You've worked at Bolshoi, you've worked at Mariinsky, you've worked everywhere. Was it similar first energy? Was it, tell us about what happened in the studio.
When you first meet a company, it does generally feel on day one a bit like Christmas morning. Everything's just wonderful and great.
So true.
But a puppy is not for Christmas, and this kind of takes this investment. So it was great. I mean, you were there. I spoke to the company about the ethics that I come from, that I believe in, and I wanted so much for them to engage as a group and we were going to mix and match. This is a large work. It will involve everybody. And I think that we're talking 40 to 50 people are on stage in one evening, and for significant periods of time. So I wanted to instill in them that idea that we are one. And yours is a company which has rankings in it, and you know what? I never felt from any moment, and this whole week, it's just been family.
It is.
And we were not always encouraged to say that word as a dance company, but I kept finding it would come out of my mouth. You need a family instinct. Artists live that butterfly existence. It's very hard, it's very short, so there's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of drive, but people are different. Learning to work with our differences is one of the most beautiful things a company can do. I've been struck so in the face by how well respectful they are towards each other, how warm, and it's a bit Aussie.
It is.
They're really good with each other and with others.
Yeah.
They are, and they're hungry as hell.
Yeah.
There was just I didn't feel a soul in the room that wasn't somewhere excited or inspired, you know, and even if it was odd or perhaps a little bit painful in certain muscle groups for them to begin with, I just felt like there was this drive in the room.
Yeah, and that's what
it's been great.
That's what we spoke about, you know, even before you came. I said, you're going to find a room full of hungry dancers, hungry to absorb. Yeah. And what I've always loved is, yes, there are rankings in this company, but there's a collective spirit, which I haven't witnessed much elsewhere.
No, yeah.
It's a really kind of unique balance.
The thing is, you know, good news travels fast, and I had heard, and I've known for years, the working schedule of the Australian Ballet is different. I mean, every company has its idiosyncrasies and things, and their ways, but it worked very, very hard in this company. A lot of shows, a lot of performances, big blocks of time. You're sharing between two cities, in general, your seasons. These are things that influence artists deeply, and therefore integrate with their work ethic slowly or not. And I'm happy to say that the things that I've always suspected and admired about this company are true. Yeah. And that is that gung-ho, you know, there's a lot of chutzpah in the room, it's good. And I'm a firm believer that energy creates energy. Yeah. And I think that as soon as one starts dragging down, there will be an influence. So there's been very much a positive counter effect to that. You feel like one goes, so the next one goes. So, you know, it's, as I think perhaps a little bit scary for them, all of this is. There's also this like linkage going on, and and the company's, they're chomping at the bit. It's really great. So
tell me about, you know, we're going to do 40 some shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is very atypical. Usually it's a dozen or something. It's maybe even a run of 8 shows.
That's how many shows we did. We did a dozen shows of Kunstkamer. That's all that's been done.
That's amazing. That's amazing to, I mean, I know that there was a huge tour happening, but
thanks to Miss Corona.
Our dear friend Corona.
That didn't happen.
So there will be 40 some shows. Yeah. Given the intimacy, the energy of the work, and how it's so different, and how there's spoken word, there's singing on stage, there's acting, there's unison, there's
a lot of dancing.
How do they keep it fresh? How do you think, you know, because you talk about energy begets energy. They do have a lot of shows here, and something that I've been working on with the dancers is keeping the level of intensity after show 35. Similar, fresh. How would you think that they would do that with Kunstkamer?
I think in all artists' careers, if they are truly committed to what they do, in all our work, we have to find that in our way. Imagination. Yeah, you know, we deal with things that audience just watch and let go of. But as artists, for us, all those little things mean a lot. So I always, as myself, and that's what I will encourage the company to do, is to explore the movement in many ways, to explore qualities of movement. And I think that is a process. It doesn't happen on premiere night. It doesn't happen, sometimes it happens on the weirdest funny matinee, you know.
The Wednesday matinee.
Suddenly you're going like, what's happening here?
Wednesday matinee. For that reason.
Because something happens. With our company, it was different. We used to very much go to many cities in the Netherlands, come back on a bus every day, go out to a little, because everything is so close. We didn't do seasons in that sense. And you would go to some funny little town in the outskirts of the Netherlands, you know, close to the German border usually, and you give the shows of your life. And that was because you're meant, and I think this will happen because it's a long run, but it's going to be fulfilling if you have that imagination, if you have that. Because there is a lot of movement, there's a lot of choreography, a lot of food. So therefore, it's how you're going to digest it that will create the magic. And because, as I said before, Kunstkamer is not per se a narrative piece, then I think that what they will be investing in and creating their own dramaturgy of it will be through the movement, through the physicality.
Great.
And I think that will start there.
So, the music. I've always been interested on how a creator uses the music, is inspired by the music. The music is varied. Joby Talbot, Beethoven, Schubert, you know, Janis Joplin,
Henry Purcell,
Benjamin Britten. So it's so rich musically, but very diverse. So what is your relationship with the music of Kunstkamer? You know, how did you say, Crystal, what do you want to create to? Or did you give them a guide?
I was more selfish than that.
Were you? Were you like, this is my music?
No. I'm generous / selfish, if that can exist. Because I was steering this thing, there was, of course, and I wanted, you know, we don't always use a full orchestra, which you have the great advantage of having. And so I wanted everybody on board on this. You know, we put every single dancer on stage we had. We put the orchestra with us. We made a kick-ass, can I say that? A kick-ass decor, you know. And so musically, I said, okay, the only way I can see this is that I'll hunt music out. I'll just hunt out playlists. I'll just keep throwing it out there. I have no idea what order this is going to come in. And then I got quite selfish. And I would only take things that I really loved. And then I went to the choreographers and said, how about? Like, is there anything in here that you think? Now, I know Sol very well because we worked together. So already when I was hunting, it took me about 1.5 years to collect all the music. And there are very well-known pieces. It's not about discovering hidden jewels. It's just about listening and listening. My playlist was, you know, hundreds of tracks long, and then I started playlist 1, playlist 2, sort of working it down. It was like a kind of an audition in a way. But at the same time, I was trying to be conscious of, because I've used the word celebration. This piece is a celebration, celebration of all of us and our lives, and music. I wanted it to go the whole cahoot, you know, from A to Z somehow. How far can we go? So I was collecting things I liked. And of course, as a director, as you well know, you've also got those voices behind you, knowing that there are certain boxes you have to tick. That, you know, will this make the orchestra? Yeah. Well, no, that I was more like, okay, I won't be remembered for keeping the budget square. Let's put it like that. But I was like,
I'll take that advice.
You can blame me when they come back to you and go,
Paul Lightfoot, that I don't have to look at the budget.
You know, what I did do was look at things I loved, and then also was thinking, well, the orchestra would like to play this. You know, you know, because orchestras also, they're not, you know, dancers were thinking, oh, but it'd be nice, they have something lovely, and what about the orchestra?
That's so interesting, because when I've heard the music, I thought, God, orchestrally, this is such nourishment for an orchestra,
I will tell
as
you,
well as the dancers.
I will tell you, first meetings with orchestras about new productions can sometimes be a little bit icy, because what choreographers see as interesting and musicians see as interesting are very often not quite the same. So I've had so many meetings where you're coming in thrilled, and the orchestras seem to kind of go, you know. This was the first meeting I had where the orchestra were like, because they were like, okay, tell us what you've got. This was sort of like 1 year before the premiere. And I was just going, well, I have this. Silence. So I was like, okay, I'll keep going. I'm like, this piece. Oh, I even, you know, sounds of, you know, appreciation, like, oh, that's going to be nice. And then there's the other practicalities. Can it fit in a pit? Because if I go from Beethoven, from Purcell, from, you know, contemporary composers, or Lightfoot Arnold's, or Joby Talbot's music, then can I make that work? So there's the practicalities lying around your dreams.
Interesting.
And so anyway, I slithered my way through it.
Well,
and I came with all of these choices. And
so
I was said to Sol, like, okay, I know what you like. I'm going to spoil you. I love these pieces with all my heart, but I think you should take them. So, and as this was the first time we were officially working apart from each other, she was happy. So that was great. I've got 1 down, 2 to go. I approached Crystal, and funnily enough, what was very beautiful was that, that one of her first works had been with Schubert's music. And she immediately said, can I have the Schubert? Can I have the Schubert? Like, she's like, I've already worked with this piece of music, but it will be, I want to make something completely different, you know, 20 years later. So she was really touched, in the sense, like, I just got lucky, I suppose. Marco Goecke is another case, because he's a very eccentric guy who I adore. who I also hope one day you'll have more opportunity to meet. He's usually using pop music, Kate Bush, Placebo. He'll like go all over the place, but he's brilliant with it. So I did give him a hall pass. I said he was going to make 2 larger sections in the evening, and I said, well, one of them you're using Johann Strauss. I'm going to tell you now. I'm sure this is going to work for you. Okay, he said, and I said, but the other piece you can choose. There'll be one piece that the orchestra won't work with. And you know what? It was brilliant, because I would never have gone there, and it fits. You know what I'm talking about, the Janis Joplin just suddenly comes out of the woodwork, and you're like, where did that come from? And this is what's so good, because it also shook my bedrock, which needed it, because I think otherwise it perhaps would have been too much me, and suddenly there's this kind of earthquake in the piece. Great. And he found these bootleg recordings of her that he wanted to use, and he's very specific about which recording and this kind of thing. And that was a headache to find originally, even to work out where it came from. But what a stroke of genius this man has. So that was actually the story of the music. And the singing for me, again, came from my neck of the woods, because I grew up on a farm in the middle of the countryside in the north of England, with no artistic bones lying around in any of my ancestors, except for singing. Quite a religious grandmother who was a staunch Methodist, and I grew up, my first 5 years of my life, I spent so much time with her. My father had a beautiful singing voice, and he was working with male voice choirs, which are very typical. So I worked in choirs.
That's the connection of...
I was singing a lot when I was young, and I believe in the power of it, of communal singing together. It's a beautiful thing to do.
With Kunstkamer in terms of the singing, because you see, dancers move their bodies all the time. It's just second nature. But all of a sudden they come into this group and they just start. And it's so arresting, because it's actually singing taken seriously. A lot of times we would just approach the singing as this sort of ad hoc thing. But it's like, it's taken very seriously, so therefore it's very effective.
I believe in it, so I kind of did it with a dual ambition. One that's, it's good for the piece. We're going to sort of, do something different, but also it's going to bring us closer together in this process. And singing is not like dancing. You're like, oh, we're just going to sing a bit. No. I mean, any singer will tell you this is an art form that is way off our normal kaleidoscope of talents. But the beautiful thing about choir is you don't have to possess the perfect voice. If you can create a good, let's say, management with yourself, the sensitivity between each other. And of course we had a full company. You will have the same. You'll have some people who actually don't sing very well, highly insecure people, very cocky people who think, well, I know what I'm doing, but maybe they don't. It's quite frightening. But it's beautiful. But it's exactly. But it's a beautiful thing to do. I had done it once before in a different ballet, but totally different, and I went for Purcell. We're doing 1600 something here, and it's a 4-part harmony. We're not messing around here, and it's perhaps only a minute and a half. But by
it's
God,
so powerful.
Yeah. And it speaks of company again, and that's what we wanted. We dance as a company, irrespective of who we are, what level of experience or age. So you'll be dealing with the youngest members who've just joined, to well-rounded professionals who've spent perhaps their entire career here. And that's the same in the singing. So you'll have people with perhaps a very poor vocal range, and people who also didn't know how well they could sing. It's going to be... I wish I could be around for all those rehearsals, but that will work out.
What's beautiful is the collective. And I think that's one of the experiences that the dancers will come out of is this piece as collective. We're so used to casting Romeo and Juliet, and then Mercutio and Benvolio, and then the group, but here it's about everyone.
It's a myriad of roles disappearing, and it was, again, very much on a practical level. We were talking divide and conquer this monster. If somebody has everything and others don't have enough, it just doesn't work. So somewhere not everybody, but nearly everybody you give them a moment to shine, and that's what's so beautiful about it.
So rich.
It came you know, people shouldn't be afraid in Australia about this strange title, Kunstkamer. It's actually very simple. Kunst means art, and Kamer is a room, so it's a room full of art.
Mm-hmm.
That left us all the freedom to do whatever we wanted with this work and still come out saying, well, that's what it is, it's a room full of art, you know. It was kind of like our fail-safe when we didn't know what, because we didn't know each other what we were making at that time. And it is like this. You know, it was really, in principle, inspired by this book called The Cabinet of Natural Curiosities, about this man who had collected all natural species from all around the world and put them together, and then eventually had them painted and drawn into a book. And his collection was kept in a room called a Kunstkamer. And the Kunstkamer was the precursor for the museums that we visit today, because they didn't exist in that time. So it's about a collection of species in one place together. Well, you know, for us, that, I mean, I was like, okay, metaphor, tick. You know, so this is what it's about.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to fill our room full of art and artists. I know.
Me neither.
There's a buzz in the building. There's also, you know, a buzz with what's coming. I think the audiences are excited, but, you know, curious. It's completely new for them, as it is for the dancers. So thanks for embarking on this beautiful monster.
It's an emotional time for me too.
Yeah.
I think that its life got cut short through the circumstances of the world, and now it's going to be reborn.
Yeah.
And how beautiful is that going to be? So I get very roused already by all of this.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful time. So I'm also extremely grateful.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
You're
Great
welcome.
chatting.
Yeah, it was good.
And here we go.
Absolutely.